Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. This is Heidi from My Reading Life, and I'm here today to film the beginning of a reading vlog because it is mid-month book bash. Yes, it is that time of the month again where we try to read as much as we possibly can in the second weekend of the month. So this reading themed event goes from the Friday to the Monday of the second weekend of the month. It was originally conceived of by Doris over at Aldi Books, and I usually try to participate because I find it gives me a good jump start on my reading for the month. My goal for this weekend is to read 1,000 pages. I don't know if I can do it or not, but you got to have a goal, right? So that's my goal. I am currently in the middle of many books, which is usual for me. So let's talk about what they are. The first one is a book that I will be finishing up today. This is The Frozen River by Ariel Lawson. This is historical fiction mystery set in Maine based on a true person. Sorry for the glare cover. This is a library copy. So this is based on the life of Martha Ballard, who was a real-life midwife that lived in an area called Hollowell, Maine, down by Augusta, which is the state capital, in the 1700s. Yes, this story takes place in 1789, this particular setting. And she actually lived in that time period, and she kept a diary. And I have read the nonfiction book that is based on her diary. And it won the Pulitzer Prize. I've forgotten the name of that book, but loved that nonfiction book. So when this historical fiction mystery came out, I was really interested in it. I only have about 35 pages left to read. It is really good, really engaging. I'll talk about it more when I finish it, but I am buddy reading this one with Britta Bola as well. The next book I am in the middle of is a book called Seven Fallen Feathers by Tanya. And this is a nonfiction book that I'm buddy reading with Rachel. And it is about seven Indigenous students from the Thunder Bay region of, I believe, Ontario, who went missing, who have gone missing, and who ended up being found. And there's questions around their disappearance and their deaths. And so these seven fallen feathers, these seven students that went missing, were all tied in some way to residential schools. So this book talks about these individuals, but also talks about the broader issue of removal of Indigenous children from their homes and communities and placement in these residential schools. So I have read a bit about this particular topic in the past, and this is a very good investigative journalistic nonfiction book about that topic. So very much getting a lot out of that book, although I will say it's very hard subject to read about. Then my audiobook is my next presidential biography that I'm reading for my presidential reading challenge. So I am listening to Hoover by Kenneth, Whyte. This is like a 800-page biography. I'm about halfway through it. And Herbert Hoover, I did not know very much about him at all. I knew that he had been involved in humanitarian efforts to feed people in Ukraine and Russia after World War I. But he did a lot more than that. And he was also I would say he was probably not a very easy person to live with or to work with. And probably today we would figure out that he is on the spectrum. But I'm finding out lots about him through this audiobook, and I would say that this is a very well-written biography. If you like biography, if you like presidential biography, this one so far, halfway through, has been very, very engaging. So that's my audiobook. Another buddy read is The Deluge by Stephen Markley. This is a novel, a very chunky one that I am slowly reading with Sean Bree's books. We're reading about 50 to 60 pages per week, so I will be reading the next installment. I am on page 163, I think, right now, so I have to read the next 50 pages or so for a check-in with Sean on Monday. This is climate fiction following several different characters in rotating chapters, and also includes mixed media. Really, really enjoying this one. I am reading a book off my ancient TBR, trying to get through those because I only have a few left. And this one is a nonfiction, Heart, a History by Sandeep Jauhar. This one, I'm about halfway through this one as well. I'm a little more than halfway through this one. And I would say this one started off really slowly for me. I was at the point where I thought I might DNF it, but then it picked up. I am interested in the history of the development of surgical procedures and treatment options for heart disease, because it's something that hits very closely in my own family. We certainly have a history of heart disease in my personal life, in my personal family. I'm not in my personal life, but in my family. So this one hits home, but I would say that Atul Gawande does this type of book a lot better than this author. So some things about it, like the information that I'm getting is good, but the writing style is not necessarily my favorite. So hoping to maybe finish this one this weekend. I then picked up a book that I've been wanting to read, or planning to read, I guess is the more appropriate way to say it, planning to read for a very long time. This is The Drawing of the Three by Stephen King. This is the second book in the Gunslinger series of books. I have never been able to get beyond The Gunslinger. I've read The Gunslinger multiple times and then just never continued on with the subject, with the series. And this is a series that's on my Mooks and Gripes bucket list. And so, I don't know, I was just feeling in the mood for a fantasy, and that's what this is. It's dark fantasy. So I picked it up last weekend and I read the first 32 pages. And so, and here we are Friday, and I haven't picked it up again because I've been trying to read other things, and I don't read as much during the work week, and certainly not this week because of the Olympics. So, yeah, I'm going to see if I can get into this one, and if I'm wanting to continue on with it. So hoping to make some more progress in that this weekend. And then if I finish a couple books and I'm ready to start something new, I have 2 books for women in translation to pick from. So the first one is a book that is translated from the German, and that is The End of Days by Jenny Erpenbeck. And who is the translator? Susan Bernofsky. And I think this is historical fiction. Yeah. 20th century European history, talking about the various lives of one woman, an intoxicating masterpiece that pulls apart the threads of destiny and allows us to see the present and the past anew. So don't know anything else about it other than this. I've never read any Jenny Erpenbeck, and I've been wanting to try something by her. So that one is a possibility. And then I have this book, which is The Memory Police by Yoko Ozawa. And this is the author of The Housekeeper and the Professor, which I read and loved. And this is translated from the Japanese by Stephen Snyder. So I love The Housekeeper and the Professor. I understand that this is a much, much different type of a book. This is set on an unnamed island off an unnamed coast. Objects in the world are disappearing, and then the inhabitants of this island are oblivious to this until one person is able to notice and remember that these things are missing. And so I think it's kind of a dystopia, maybe, type of a thing. It says it's a surreal, provocative fable about the power of memory and the trauma of loss. I don't know. So this one's been on my TBR for a while, so I'm going to try to start each of those and see which one sort of sucks me in and go from there, because I do want to read something for women in translation in the month of August. So that's what I have on the go for this this vlog. So hopefully I can make some really good progress in these books, and I will check in with you when I have some updates to report. Good morning. It is Saturday and day 2 of Mid-Month Book Bash. Got my New York Public Library t-shirt on today. It is raining outside. Remnants of hurricane or tropical storm Deborah, I believe, that are raining down upon us this morning. So good time for reading. So yesterday I only managed to read about 100 pages between work, and then we went out to supper with some friends. But I did finish The Frozen River by Ariel Lawson. And this book did not disappoint. This was excellent. I really enjoyed my time spent with it. I think I talked about it briefly yesterday. Historical fiction mystery based on the life of a true person, Martha Ballard, who was midwife in the Hollowell, Maine area in the mid to late 1700s. And in this story, the author takes like actual real things that happened in Martha Ballard's life and sort of fictionalizes them into this mystery story. This book is so good. It is talking about, first of all, Martha Ballard is middle-aged, and so it's awesome to have a middle-aged woman as the protagonist. She is so relatable, going through like real life stuff that women go through at that time in their lives. And she has been a midwife for many years, truly understands like women's bodies and childbirth and all these things. And so you get to see her working at her trade, and what she does as a midwife is what draws her into this mystery. And I will say that the central mystery involves rape and how rape is handled, what the legal system is like in this time period. This is in the colonial time period. This is in 1789. So it's just past the Revolutionary War. The legal system is much different than our legal system today. And this book has a lot to say about what women's lives were like in that time period, how much they have or have not changed in terms of how charges of rape are handled in the legal system, what women have to deal with in their lives. And I think that what's interesting about this is by basing this on a true story, Martha Ballard left a diary, and that is very unusual for women in that time period. And we just don't know very much about what women's day-to-day lives were like, because that history was not recorded. If it was recorded, it wasn't kept. It wasn't considered important. And so we just don't know a lot of times what life was like on the day-to-day basis for a woman. And this book really fleshes that out. And I found it really fascinating. Plus, it's just a great story. Lawson does a wonderful job with her characterization. The plot is really good. There's a lot going on. There's a lot of characters, and I did not feel lost at any point in time. So I think she does a wonderful job with that as well. So I had a fabulous time reading this book. If you like historical fiction and or mystery, I think that you would enjoy this book. I really, really enjoyed my time spent with it. So super glad I read that. And I would also highly recommend that you read the nonfiction book that got this author interested in the story. And I've forgotten the name of that book, the specific name, but I'll write it down here on the screen so that you can look it up. But that nonfiction book is really, truly excellent as well. It won a Pulitzer Prize back in the 90s, I believe. So, yeah. So that one I finished. And then this morning, I've read about 150 pages of The Drawing of the Three by Stephen King. Like, no surprise when I actually sat down and like applied myself to this book. Of course, Stephen King sucked me into his story. So we're following this man, the gunslinger, who is in some kind of other world, fantasy world. And he's on a quest to get to the Dark Tower. This is book 2 in a series. And in this particular book, he's drawing together the people that are going to help him hopefully achieve his quest. And so we've just met, and he's basically acquired his first partner in this endeavor. And I'm not going to talk about how it happens, because I think this book is best gone into without really knowing. But in typical Stephen King fashion, there is some really funny characters. There is also some discussion of drug addiction. There is violence and some mobsters involved. And yeah, it goes in crazy places. But in the very, very beginning of this book, like in the first 20 pages, you know, you're introduced to the gunslinger, and he's on this beach in some other world, and these lobster type characters, or these lobsters, I shouldn't say characters, they're not characters, these lobster type creatures attack him. And they're very B-movie, science fiction type monsters. And I just had to imagine that Stephen King, being an author from Maine, like takes our most popular seafood, the lobster, and like turns it into something horrifying. I mean, that's just so typically Stephen King, right? So very much enjoying my time with this. And this particular book has these full page color plates illustrating different parts of the action. I think there's one here of the gunslinger by himself. Yeah, so here's the gunslinger. So yeah, that's another little fun thing to have in the book. So that's where I'm at with that. That's really the most of what I've been working on in the last couple of days. Hopefully I will have more time to read here on Saturday. We don't have much going on. I am getting ready to watch the Gold Cup match, USA women's soccer playing Brazil for the gold medal in the Olympics. I'll be watching that this morning and looking forward to that because I love women's soccer. And yeah, let's see what else I get up to today. But first, I wanted to check in because I finished another book yesterday. Before I went to bed last night, I finished The Drawing of the Three by Stephen King. This is book 2 in the Gunslinger series. So I had read like 35 pages or something before I picked this book up yesterday, and I was unable to go to bed last night until I finished it. It reads really quickly. This particular edition that I have is 400 pages, but the type is really big. There's a lot of white space. There's full page color illustrations, all that kind of stuff. So it read pretty quickly. There's a lot of action, as per usual in a Stephen King book. And I really can't talk about what happens in this book because it will be spoilers for, if you haven't read The Gunslinger, which is book 1, and then, I don't want to give anything away because the fun in this is figuring out what's going on. I mean, the titular character of The Gunslinger is the main character in this one as well, and he is gathering around him partners to help him on his quest to get to the Dark Tower. And we still don't really know why he wants to get to the Dark Tower or like what the Dark Tower even is, but that is his focus and his reason for being. And this is like dark fantasy. It's a portal fantasy. There are these doorways that the gunslinger is able to travel between worlds. And that is how he is gathering his partners with him. There's, your trademark Stephen King goriness. It's not particularly gory, but there are definitely gross scenes. The lobster things that I discussed in my other clip are very much a part of the story throughout, which I loved because I think it was kind of Stephen King making a joke about Maine's lobster industry and what lobsters really do look like alien creatures. If you really look at them, they're kind of a weird looking animal. So I thought that was really great and fun. And yeah, I really enjoyed my time spent with this. It's not my favorite Stephen King for sure, but it was a good time and I enjoyed myself while reading it. So happy to have read that. And that means that my page count, that means that my page count is up over 500 for the weekend right now. So Sunday morning, I don't know how much reading I'm going to get done at the lake. We're going to be there with family, so you know how that goes. But I am hoping to get some reading done. And then, of course, tomorrow's a work day. So it's not looking good to get 500 more pages done in the next 2 days. But I'm going to give it the good old college try. It's Monday, and I didn't do a check-in at the end of the day on Sunday, but I'm here to tell you that I did complete another book for the Mid-Month Book Bash. This is Heart, A History by Sandeep Jauhar, and this is nonfiction. just what it says on the tin. And it does actually weave in some memoir-esque type moments in his life. Jauhar is a doctor. He's a cardiologist. And so he, has a lot of experience and talks about some of his patient stories in terms of heart type conditions. But I will say that I never felt connected to his story, his personal story, nor did I feel connected to the narrative about the history of how different types of medicines and treatments and interventions have been developed for the heart. Look at this. The leaves are blowing off the trees. I don't know if this talking outside is going to work today for me. I don't know. Anyway, let's just keep going. I thought it was quite dry. It was not engaging. I skim read quite a bit of it just to try to get to the salient points. There is a lot of animal experimentation in here, and it's not interrogated at all. Like, the author does not discuss any of the ethical issues around animal experimentation, and I found those sections to be just really they were confronting in a way, because it was awful what was being done to these animals, and it's just never discussed, like, what those animals must have endured to have all of these experiments done on them. So I didn't like that part of it. I did not connect with his personal stories. The historical bits about, how we came to understand what the heart does and how to treat different heart conditions was quite dry. The parts that I did like the most were his interactions with patients, and more specifically the development of the treatments, the technologies. That's the word I'm looking for. The technologies that we utilize today. How we figured out how to use pacemakers and defibrillators and all of the things that have taken heart disease from being like something that I can't remember what the numbers were. It was crazy numbers of how many Americans died from heart ailments to it's down to 2 to 3% of people die from heart attack the first time around. And that's it was 50%, I think, originally, but now we have so many interventions, it's way less. So yeah, that was all good, but the rest of it not so good. So I can't really recommend this one, and it is a book off my ancient TBR, so I'm glad to have read it for that purpose, to know that it's no longer sitting on my shelf waiting for me to read it. But it was not a great read for me other than that. So like I said, it is Monday. I have been listening to my audiobook, Hoover, which is a biography of Herbert Hoover, and really enjoying that. And I also started a book for Women in Translation Month. I started The Memory Police, but I don't know. I've read about 40 pages of it so far, and so far it is not holding my attention. So I'm going to give it some more time. Maybe we'll see 75 pages or something and see how I feel about it at that point. Good morning, everyone. It is Tuesday, and I am here to close up the mid-month Book Bash reading vlog. So, whoops. I'm a little bit discombobulated. It's early in the morning, and I have to get this clip filmed so that I can head out. I'm going to work in the field today. But I wanted to say I met my goal. I read over 1,000 pages. Just barely. I read 1,038 pages. I was able to keep up with all of my buddy reads, and I completed 4 books. I've already talked about the first 3 books I completed, but last night before I went to bed, I finished this one, The Memory Police by Yoko Ozawa. This is literary fiction. It is translated from the Japanese by, let me look up the translator. It is Stephen Snyder. So this one I read for Women in Translation Month, and I did not like it. No, I did not. This was not a book for me. It was a book in which it's kind of a dystopian. It's about this woman, it's unnamed narrator. She lives on this island, unnamed island off the coast of some unnamed country, and things disappear in this community. And once they disappear, everybody forgets about them. And there are these memory police that are agents of the government, and they force you to get rid of the items that have been disappeared. That's how they refer to it. Items get disappeared. And so as time goes on, these people that live in this community, they lose more and more items, and there are more and more holes in their lives. And so this is like an allegory of what it's like to live with memory loss, but it's also about state surveillance and the things that communities of people will put up with and tolerate, and how that sort of slow drip of loss of your autonomy and your ability to make your own choices, how humans are apt to just deal with that, and just, it's never all that terrible right in the moment, and so you just continue to put up with it forever. And it also has shades of Anne Frank, because our narrator hides somebody from the memory police. So yeah, the ideas in the book are good, but the characters feel really distant. I never connected, and it's super slow. It's really slow, and I just never really felt into this book. I never felt like super engaged, or like really, I didn't really care. So it was just one of those books where I read it and I just felt meh about it. So yeah, not a book for me. But I am excited to have read it and to have read a book for Women in Translation Month. And I'm excited that I met my goal for reading 1,000 pages over Mid-Month Book Bash. And that's 4 books done over the weekend, which is also very exciting. So I feel like this has been a tremendous success for me. And it's nice to have a success like that, because my reading has not been all that stellar, just recently. So anyway, I hope that you guys have been able to get some reading done over this weekend. I hope you're reading something fabulous, and I hope everybody's doing well. I will talk to you again later.